I don't know how you're really going to. Drums are still moving, so we're okay. Alright. Turn on some musics. Really like this lo-fi. I'm share my screen. Right. So I didn't really stream at all last week. I recognize that. I apologize. I've made a ton of progress, though. I will say I was able to play the game yesterday with my wife for maybe 5 minutes before it crashed. Probably less than that. So I have a list of bugs that need to be resolved. So let's notes real quick on what I was doing before. Alright, so things that need fixing. Got the item chooser, doesn't clear the position. There's just a ton of bugs actually that need to fix for multiplayer interaction. For example, like multiplayer doesn't disconnect players, keeps thinking that there are 3 players after 1 player is disconnected or locked out. Yeah, so I've got multiple problems to face and to hopefully resolve over the next hour. I'm going to start with the item chooser and just gonna start there and get working. So I created a logger, which is actually pretty nice. It logs all of my information, so I don't have to care about like commenting in different prints, which is really nice. So, allowable items. Sure, my allowable items is changing. Set to something different every time. No? Allowable items with item system, the item list. I'm gonna comment that out. That should fix one of my bugs. I also have this thing that's supposed to format my code. However, sometimes it really just doesn't run. It's a little bit frustrating, I suppose. It gets caught in an infinite loop, I think, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to improve my workflow for building games though, so I can do it faster. Next step really is going to be writing my unit tests. Just having testing in place for the different things that I write because I really need those tests so I can ensure that I just know that things aren't broken. If you're hopping in, I'd love to know who you are, what you love about Godot, the things you want to build, the things you'd like to see. I love building multiplayer games. My goal is to build a game that I just want to play with my wife. Fix one bug. Item chooser doesn't reset properly. I really don't know how you really breathe in them. This is my daughter. She joins me on these programming adventures. Okay. Put here that I don't need. now, bug we need to fix is item chooser doesn't give previously chosen. So basically, what the item chooser system is it's a UI that pops up that lets players vote on the next, let's say, item. That can also just be a behavior. It's a new power up that they want to receive. So let's say like all the players level up at the same time. We want them all to vote now on the new power up, increased movement speed, more health, increased experience, things like this. So that's what this item treatment system does, and it leverages what I call the vote system to handle all of that. So we have this vote system coming down, and vote system setup. I want to in this queue, I want to clean up the UI. So I need to loop through all of my different item tweakers. I want to call clear votes. So let's double check. The question system that leverages the vote system as well. That actually might be question control. Vote system turn down. Okay. So remove all the votes in the UI. So now I'm doing that over here, the item chooser system as well. Now, something that I would really love to do actually is document how I use the system. Just so that when I need to use it next time, I can actually set this up. I have to go back through and smooth through the code. That would really stink. Okay, so now our vote system. So first and foremost, we have a 2. Now this. This. Means that those future options. Oh, sometimes there. That's okay. Very good. They need vote. Cool. Vote. One vote. Okay. Alright, so that's all the code. Now we're going to add, for simplicity, we put this code into the system code. That is all the code we need to set up the vote system as far as I'm aware. Now if I want him to work, I'm just going to copy this code in class. And then call vote system setup and vote system tear down at the beginning of the That is awesome. Also, step two would be need to make sure that this code is also important to double. Come back here and look better. Right now, it's just using an integer to show who's voted on what. That's not very clear at all. So this is the bare bones. Any okay. We have successfully documented how you use our note system. Okay. It's likely more that I have been caught. I expect that when I come to follow this to implement the vote system again for something else, this probably something else that I'll add. But there we go. So item chooser does now clear previous stuff. is the player doesn't disconnect the players. It keeps thinking about the players after one of the players disconnected for like so it must be directly part of the builds. And something I'm gonna do. Actually add a logger. So these prints on need about the Alright, so we replaced all the things with logger. Okay, so now I would keep thinking that there are three players. So using the multiplayer.getPeers.size. Determine how many peers we have. I would assume that this would be automatically handled where if someone disconnects the peers are cleaned up for me. So a thought that I have in regards to this bug is that maybe if someone lags out, technically their peer hasn't disconnected completely yet. So a situation I needed to handle then is if someone disconnects while you're answering a question, it shouldn't force you to wait. So what I'm going to do then is split this function out. So I can, like, this functionality here, split this functionality out. Call func votes. What is it? Okay. This here. Alright. So now what we need to do is the vote system needs to link up to the multiplayer and detect when a player joins and leaves. And when a player joins, when a player leaves, it should excuse me. It should show it should check votes again. I should clean up their votes and then I should call check votes. Like that. So let's go and see how we depict. So we go player with peer connected, peer disconnected. What? You know what? I would put this in. Multiplayer. Player. Yes. Okay, so I don't really know. I don't think I want to do anything on the on player connected. We don't have the on player disconnected. Up. remove all of his votes. If clarity is in the votes, we say vote was removed. Boom. I really want to run check votes. So that should fix that problem. Okay, let's see, 38 minutes in, we got about 5 minutes left. The next thing to do is then. So our next tackle to handle is items and item upgrades. So I've had items functioning so that you could upgrade items over time or stack them. And I'm thinking that honestly, that just might be the best way to go. Just stack items. Because basically I want to make it so that when you level up, let's say I give myself 10% increased movement speed, I want to be able to keep myself another 10% increased movement speed. And the way that this previously worked is if I detected, an item duplicate, I would run a level up on the item. Now, sometimes you might still want to do this, or you might still want to make a change to the item itself. So I need to take that into account. But when I redesigned the system to use resources, only resources, to track items, I lost that functionality of, it was a component actually. I told the component, hey, level up, and the component would handle the level up. So since that is no longer a thing, I need to create some method for leveling up. Excuse me, man. I'm yawning so much right now. I'm kind of tired. But I need to create a system for leveling up or just stacking items. And I think the stacking approach will be easier. So if I think about it from the perspective of Risk of Rain, that roguelite, you basically run through and you're collecting items, you're stacking tons and tons and tons of items. And the goal is to just make yourself as OP as possible by stacking the items that you have, which makes sense. And doing something like that is easier than trying to call level up on an item. So we're going to take the stacking approach. One thought that comes to mind as far as the stacking approach goes, however, is I need to make sure that there's diminishing returns on the stacking. So if you stack like 25 movement speed bonuses, you don't have 250% increased movement speed. It's like there's diminishing returns. So I need some. With that in mind, it might actually be better to separate it out so everything has, or so we actually can upgrade an item. And when we upgrade an item, there's a different effect that takes place. Okay, so what does that look like? If I do have, so one of the inherent problems we're gonna face is that right now every item is technically the same resource. And so the issue that I face here is that recreating the same item is effectively the same as saying, I want to copy this item. I should say, for the item to have diminishing returns, I need to create new versions of that item. Otherwise, when I make a change to it, it'll change like all of the existing instances. So it'll change how it affects me, it'll change how it affects you, it'll change how it affects the other guy, it'll change everyone. So I need to have a new version of that item for each player. So that they're functionally different between players. And if I have 200 stacks and you have one, the diminishing returns is only applied to me and not to you. Okay, so that complicates things just a smidge. But if I can figure out how to just make that a simple process where I just duplicate the resource, I think we'll be moving in a good direction. So let's go take a look then at So this is our item class. I am thinking that we are going to want so I'm thinking I want to have a static function here. We're just going to get started and see if we can make it. Making headway on it. Highlight 1, 8. So I think this should work. We just have this create copy function. I'm actually going to put it at the top. This formatter, I don't know. Doesn't like sometimes. So with a new resource completely, now we can change, for example, the equip effect of this specific item and be pretty happy with the results. Now, looking at this, we're actually probably going to want to copy. We want to copy the equip effect too, because the equip effect is also a resource, which means that probably need to loop through each equip effect. And I'd expect this equip effect maybe to have a copy as well. So create copy function. because I don't want to be able to create a copy of this. A stat effect, for example, has an array of stat modifier effects, so I've just got layers in here, right? Oh man, I'm really gonna need to think about this for longer, harder, deeper to make something that is extensible, reusable, that I can apply everywhere. It's easier to use. Because this equip stat effect is what I'd want to copy. Uh, but I mean, the fact that it has another stat modifier effect inside of it means I need to copy another layer down. And I'm wondering if that's the best way to go. That might be the only way to go, honestly. When you're working with resources and you want to handle level ups and leveling and resources, I mean, each resource is unique until you explicitly say, give me a new one, and then copy it over. So there's a lot of power working with resources as items. There's also a lot of drawbacks. This is one of them, that if I have each resource, each item just being a legit entity that exists on the player, and I just reparent that around, it's a lot easier to apply level ups. The issue is it's a lot harder to actually save that information. One of the reasons I swapped over to resources is because I can just save it. I have a save function. So I can just save them and load them back in whenever I want. So, pros and cons to both approaches. I think I would like to stick with items as resources because I think it's a good long-term strategy. Just looking at how it works and not needing to create new instances and deal with entities spawning in and whether or not entities are ready and different things like this. That is of value to me. So I do want that. But I also want to be able to modify the items, or perhaps better word to use is create new ones for each player. So I can have diminishing returns on upgrades or stacking of the items, different effects, different stacking effects. So like if I want to, let's say stacking increases the damage that I do, that would be a different. What's another example? It's like you have stack duration versus stacking. It's like adding. Basically, if I want to do different kinds of math, depending on the stack. So if I have armor, I take decreased damage. It's like that will be handled differently than increasing my own damage, for example. So those are things that I need to keep in mind. So we only have 10 minutes left. I think I'm actually going to end the stream early so that I can take some time and just start mapping out how I want this to work, all of my non-negotiables, and then determine the steps that I would likely need to go through to make it work in the way that my previous system was working, but still using resources. So that is the plan. That's a pretty good plan. I'm going to take some notes. This is my task. This is what I was wanting to do. This is where we are. I'm glad my daughter is still asleep. It's like she might be getting close to it. So, just an example. I'll look at the code. So we have this level component. This level component has an algorithmic level up weapon effect. Damage add 1, speed add, right? Level effect. Try to set up, remove, update, weapon value. So just looking at the algorithmic level effect weapon modifier. Use the codes before that. So we get the stat modifier component. We're going to add stat modifier. And when we get the value, we're going to I'm going to call update. So the weapon component modifier is basically sort of yeah, okay. So basically saying get the resource, update all of its values. That the new stuffs. I remember building all of this. So I can likely use this very similar approach. But just have it all resource based, instead of having this component that might trigger it. Just including this algorithmic level, like just including levels in the item itself. If it has levels, including this algorithmic level, like just algorithmic level effects within the item. So we're kind of just bundling all of the data into the item itself. And yeah, that way the item kind of becomes one thing to rule them all as far as when it equips, what happens in each level, all that good stuff. And I kind of like that. It lets me just take a look at one resource and see all of its information. And I'm okay with that. And the biggest thing is we just need to create copies of that data. Create copies of the resources so that they don't overwrite each other. So, levels. Cross. Okay. So there we go. That is the rough plan. I'm gonna call it quits for today. It's been awesome. Made some pretty good progress. Thanks for hopping in, guys. Thanks for joining me. I guess I realized I forgot to say that this was with my daughter. So, lesson learned. I'll fix that next time. But you guys have an awesome Tuesday. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you